Xavier Duval.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Indeed, where I would agree with the previous speaker is that legislation on the financing of political parties is long overdue in Mauritius. More than 90% of democracies have such legislation which includes some sort of financial reporting requirements, more than 90%. Therefore, Mauritius, having neither legislation nor any form of financial reporting requirement for political parties, is clearly amongst a very small minority of, let's say, renegade countries. Mr. Speaker, whilst I agree also with the previous speaker that the present legislation, in many respects, represents an improvement on the previous bill presented in 2019. Nevertheless, because the present version still falls short of the expectations of the PMSD, because the present version contains what we believe to be a threat to fair and free elections, therefore to our democracy, the PMSD will be unable to support this bill. In other words, the changes brought to the 2019 bill fall short of what we require. Were we not, Mr. Speaker, on the eve of the general election, I would have requested that the debate be paused to allow for some sort of committee, select committee, meeting of minds to examine the various aspects of the bill that remain so that some sort of agreement could be reached. But it is clear, listening to everyone, that there is no appetite on either side of the House for any select committee or any meeting of minds, Mr. Speaker. As far as the improvements are concerned, I would say that, apart from what the Honourable Minister just mentioned, I would say that I welcome the increase in financial penalties from 1 million to 5 million rupees, which is obviously an improvement. Also, I personally welcome that a number of responsibilities have been transferred from the Electoral Supervisory Commission, which is a board consisting of political nominees. These have been transferred to the Electoral Commissioner himself, although not fully transferred, but many have been transferred to the Electoral Commissioner himself, a person appointed by the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. But I'll come to that later, Mr. Speaker. So I will come to the crux of my speech, which I believe, Mr. Speaker, the law contains a major flaw, a major drawback that needs to be remedied. And I've listened and I've read speeches from both sides of the House, and I cannot see that this has been mentioned anywhere. So this is why I want to mention it this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, this bill authorizes much higher levels of expenditure during election campaigns. A party fielding 62 candidates nationwide will be able to spend up to 120 million rupees in mainland Mauritius and another 4.5 million rupees for Rodrigues. And you add to that the amounts allowed to be spent on municipal elections, which will be coming, I presume, soon because they are long overdue, and you have another 36 million rupees that you authorize to spend. So in all, this year, up to the end of this year, political parties may have to find up to 160 million rupees according to what is proposed in this bill. But the problem is this, that at the same time as increasing the expenditure limits, possibilities for political parties to raise funds legally and through bona fide donors are being dramatically discouraged in this bill. And this is my problem, Mr. Speaker. We are dramatically increasing levels of expenditure, and yet we are also constraining, restraining, discouraging companies that wish to finance democracy. And that is my big problem, Mr. Speaker. In particular, I'm talking about Clause 7 of the bill, which I'm not sure has been canvassed in this Assembly. Clause 7 of the bill requires each and every company to disclose in its annual published accounts the amount of contributions it has made to each and every political party. Every company has to disclose in its financial statements political contributions individually that it has made to each political party. This, Mr. Speaker, is causing fear, is causing disarray, and if passed, this bill will utterly destroy the willingness of bona fide donors to contribute to political parties, especially those political parties that are in opposition. Because, Mr. Speaker, contributions to any opposition party, and this I'm saying every single government will treat it the same way. I'm not saying this particular one more than any other, or maybe more, I don't know, but every government will react the same way on seeing companies financing the opposition. It will now all be public. If this bill is passed, it will not be, but it would all have been public. Now that would automatically be seen as an act of aggression against the government of the day. You've got the contract here, but here you are financing the opposition. I see you've got a permit, but there you are financing the opposition. You've got this and that, but you are ungrateful. You are financing opposition parties. And this is, Mr. Speaker, the issue that if tomorrow I was in a board of directors and this bill was passed, and it would be up to us to decide who to finance, it would be silly of any board of directors to finance any party in the opposition, because that would be disclosed individually in the financial statements, and you would see that any government of the day would react strongly to that. Not to mention, Mr. Speaker, the threat of MRA investigations, the threat of FCC investigations, FSC investigations for financial services companies, Bank of Mauritius investigations, and not to mention, as I mentioned, the denial of permits, the denial of work permits, the reluctance to reduce, to include these companies on tender shortlists. Anything like that would be possible and, in my view, would be happening. Because, as I mentioned, any disclosure of financing of opposition parties would be seen by any government in Mauritius as an act of aggression. Now, what is the present situation? The present situation, there is no requirement in the Companies Act for companies to disclose political contributions. The only requirement is in the Code of Corporate Governance. And the Code of Corporate Governance, as we know, deals with extremely large companies. We're talking about, for the most part, companies of 1 billion rupee turnover and over, etc. And what does the Code of Corporate Governance say? The Code of Corporate Governance, Mr. Speaker, says that you should disclose in total the contributions made to all political parties. So you just put one line, you've given 1 million, 2 million, 3 million as political contribution, full stop. You don't disclose who it is. Now, it has also, Code of Corporate Governance has also a bit that encourages companies to give more details, but according to my research, no company ever provides any more detail than the strict minimum required by the Code of Corporate Governance, and we're talking about very large corporations, and they do so, rightly so, as I mentioned before, because it is not good for them to disclose that, Mr. Speaker. Now, democracy is not free. It is, what they said, it is the best form of government. It is not a free, something that you get for free. It has to be financed. There is a cost for the government to finance elections by civil servants, police, etc., etc. There is also a cost for political parties to participate in elections. We all know what it is: transport, public address system, every printing, all the costs are quite substantial and getting higher and higher every day. So, Mr. Speaker, in the absence, therefore, of, if we are going to dry up political party funding from the private sector, what will then happen? And in the absence of any public funding, when I chaired the committee back in 2016, Honorable Doria, who I think was on that committee, we had both the restrictions and disclosure of private funding, but also public funding, because in my view, and I'm absolutely certain of what I'm saying, this bill, if ever it were to go through, would dry up completely funding for opposition political parties at least, and does not provide any remedy as far as public funding is concerned. As if to say we should believe that democracy is something that doesn't have to be paid for. It has to be paid for. It has a cost. Mr. Speaker, many, many democracies fund political parties. 75%, according to our research, Mr. Speaker, of 75% of the world's democracies fund political parties. And this is, Mr. Speaker, I understand that it's not something that you want to put at the eve of the election. I can understand that the government being a bit reluctant to do so, but nevertheless, it has to come at some point or another. And, Mr. Speaker, I believe it is going to be extremely important. Transparency, bona fide donors, but also public funding. Otherwise, what will happen? You're going to drive the whole of the funding of political parties underground. You're going to have only people who have bad reputations, who are undesirable, who have black money, who are going to fund political parties. And this is definitely not what the PMSD wants, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, that is very important for me, that if ever we are going to look again at this bill, and I hope we do, because I did say there are some improvements on the previous bill, this question of excessive disclosure, I hope I'm putting my point right, does more harm than good, unless, of course, we are going to supplement any shortfall in any shortfall by public funding. Of course, there may be parties that have such huge war chests that they don't actually bother about any funding at all. But this is not the case for us. We are not big spenders in the PMSD. We are not big spenders. We are small spenders. But whatever money we get from bona fide people who want to help democracy. And I'm sure that is the case also for many other parties in Mauritius. That is, Mr. Speaker, therefore, a dangerous threat to democracy if that clause were to remain as it is, Mr. Speaker. Now, in the words of famous words of Winston Churchill, this is what Winston Churchill said. He said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all other forms that have been tried from time to time. So, if we agree that it is, in other words, the best that can be obtained, then, Mr. Speaker, we must also agree that it has a cost. Mr. Speaker, I want to come quickly to the Electoral Supervisory Commission. The Electoral Supervisory Commission is obviously, members are appointed under the Constitution, and under Clause 22 of this bill, it is the ESC that has the supervision of the whole process of political funding and administration. It has also supervision. It has also control over the registration of political parties. Now, we've seen in other countries how various political parties from opposition have failed to register, have not been able to register. But I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it is always a possibility. Now, Mr. Speaker, I've never been happy about the way that members of the ESC are appointed in Mauritius. Never been happy about that. The Electoral Supervisory Commission is the apex body for our electoral process. Now, under section clause 38(3) of our Constitution, any person can be appointed by the President of the day, provided he is not a member of this Assembly, a candidate for election, or a public or local government officer. Any other member can be, I'm presently an MP. If the President was so minded, he could appoint my mother on the ESC. That would be authorized. He could appoint my brother, he could appoint my children, anyone. There is, Mr. Speaker, hardly any constraints on appointing members of the ESC so far, except for what I've said, members of the Assembly, etc. So we are not dealing in any way with conflicts of interest. And what has happened in the past and the previous regime as well is that we have, in my opinion, appointed people that are potentially conflicted. And that, Mr. Speaker, to me, destroys the independence of the apex parliament electoral body in Mauritius. And that is wrong, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, if we need, in my view, to amend, as we are amending, we propose to amend the Constitution, it would also be important to amend the Constitution so far as appointments on the Electoral Services Commission is concerned. That is very important. We go like we do in the UK, where there's a select committee, which is there it is presided over by the Speaker. I'm not sure it would be such a good idea here, but it is presided by the Speaker. It has members on each side of the House on that committee. There's an independent panel which assesses proposals made by each political party for appointment to the ESC. The independent panel recommendations are assessed by the Select Committee, and the Select Committee then proposes the names to Parliament for the appointment of the Electoral Supervisory Commission members in the UK. Compare that to Mauritius, where in fact it is the President himself who one day wakes up, for whatever reason decides I'm going to appoint X, Y, and Z on the Electoral Supervisory Commission. There's a big, big difference between what pertains in the Westminster model and what we do here in this country. And Mr. Speaker, this to me is totally unacceptable and needs to be changed, because if we do not change that, then who is the independent body that will supervise all these issues? Who is going to do that if nobody trusts the ESC? If over the years it continues to be filled with politically conflicted persons, and who will be able to look after and have the trust of political parties, because we would then be releasing lots and lots of information to this Electoral Supervisory Commission. Mr. Speaker, I finish by mentioning the role of the Electoral Commissioner. As I mentioned, we have a particularly good Electoral Commissioner. He's not going to stay for very long. There will be another one coming. And the Electoral Commissioner, according to this bill, has the power to call for all the records of any political party. At any time, he may do so. There is obviously a danger that he were to do so on the eve of an election, then that would create tremendous reputational damage to any political party. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, whilst I understand the need for the Electoral Commissioner to have access to records of political parties, I strongly believe, that this should be only upon obtaining of a judge's order, where he would put to the judge the reasonable suspicions that he has, because otherwise, Mr. Speaker, there could be a danger to our democracy, danger to our free and fair elections if this were to happen. Mr. Speaker, that's all I had to say on these points. I believe